You look today at all these behavior problems we're seeing, the almost intractable depression and addictions. And I just say, try our diet first before you go on all these pills. Just try eating a stick of butter a day and see what that does for you. Just try a few egg yolks a day and see how much better you feel. I just feel it's like Dorothy. She was in Kansas all along, but we've got the answers at our fingertips, but nobody realizes it.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. Most of us want to nourish ourselves well to bolster our immune system and keep our overall health strong, of course. So we commit to eat healthy. But what does that mean? There's so many different approaches to eating healthily. Which one is really best? This is episode 243, and our guest today is Fallon Morell, the president of the Weston A. Price Foundation. Sally is a prolific author, a popular speaker, and an outspoken advocate for real food and ancestral wisdom. Today she explains how our ancestors worldwide hold the key to healthy eating. It's called nutrient density. Basically, they knew how to get the most out of each bite because they learned it from their parents and their parents' parents, and so on. Traditional indigenous diets worldwide were much more nutrient-dense than ours today, basically. They were high in a variety of nutrients and replete with the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and K. Traditional diets, in essence, maximized nutrient density, while modern diets minimize it. Sally goes into detail about why this is. She explains how vitamins A, D, and K are critical for our bodies and how they work together and which foods contain them in just the right proportions. She tells stories of those whose lives have been changed through better nutrition, and she gives practical suggestions for simple ways to include nutrient-dense foods in our diet and our children's diet as well. She even tells us about one simple dietary tweak that she recommends that can help eliminate fatigue and improve mood and optimism. We pulled this episode from our archives. It originally aired in July 2016. Before we get into the conversation, a quick shout out to our sponsors. If you're looking for a way to help fill nutritional gaps in your diet and give your immune system a boost, check out Green Pasture products. Their fermented cod liver oil and high vitamin butter oil are a great natural source of vitamins A and D, as well as omega fatty acids. Boost your health today. Visit greenpasture.org to place your order. And support your immune system with wholesome nose-to-tail nutrient-dense foods. Ancestral Supplements Lung, Thymus, and Colostrum will provide your body with the vitamins and minerals it needs to stay healthy and fight off viruses. A healthy thymus builds a robust immune system. Beef lung supports the respiratory system and lung cells. Colostrum supports optimal gut and immune system function. I love these real food supplements and take them regularly. Visit ancestralsupplements.com to try them out. Ancestral Supplements Lung, Thymus, and Colostrum. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Sally.
Thank you. It's great to be back, Hilda.
So, Sally, I know we're on our little series of the Wise Traditions diet and kind of the principles that are foundational to the foundation.
Yes, right.
So now we're on principle number 3. Which is it?
Okay, so principle number 3 is our most important principle. This was formulated by Dr. Price, and it's what most people usually miss when they are talking about Dr. Price or reading him. And that is that these diets, wherever they were, whether it was in the frozen north, eating seal blubber, or whether it was in the South Seas eating pork and fish, or in the Andes, or in the Alps, wherever it was, and whatever they were eating, the diets were very nutrient dense. They were high in minerals, they were high in vitamins, and they were particularly high in the 3 fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, and K. And these are the vitamins that we are so lacking in the modern diet. And it's really the key principle of everything we teach, that you need to eat the foods that provide you with these vitamins.
Interesting, because I think most Americans would say, well, at least in the U.S., we eat a very rich diet. I take my vitamins if I don't get them in my food. Is that not true?
Well, or people say, I eat a good diet. I eat a whole foods diet. I eat whole foods. And this just glosses over it, because what people, you could be eating whole foods all your life, and it might be a very short life because you're not getting these fat-soluble activators. And so they're vitamins A, D, and K. Where do we get them? Well, we get them from organ meats. How many people are eating organ meats every day? Mm-hmm. And yet traditional cultures ate the organ meats first. So organ meats like liver, marrow, tongue, brain, blood. How many people are eating these organ meats? We get them from things like fish eggs. Now, whenever they caught a fish, they ate the fish eggs first. And in fact, that's one of the things my husband told me growing up in New Zealand. When he and his dad went fishing and they caught a fish, so we opened up the fish and we ate the marrow. That was just what you did. And ate the eggs. So things like fish eggs, shellfish is a wonderful source of these fat-soluble vitamins. Egg yolks, and butter fat, especially if the animals are raised outside. And fat from any animal, really, but pork fat, duck fat, and goose fat, and duck liver and goose liver are great sources of vitamin K. And the last one I'll mention is cheese. Of course, that's my favorite food. But aged raw cheese from pastured animals is not only rich in A and D, but it's the best Western source of vitamin K.
What do these vitamins do for our bodies?
Well, A and D are necessary for mineral metabolism. So you can be eating organic foods, mineral-rich foods, all these things, but if you are not getting the fat-soluble vitamins with these foods, your body can't do anything with the minerals. As Dr. Price said, you will starve for minerals without these special activators that allow you to absorb the minerals. Vitamin A, of course, this is my favorite vitamin, and it should be at the top of the vitamin hit parade. Unfortunately, it's the most demonized vitamin. People think it's toxic, and people think pregnant women shouldn't get vitamin A, but vitamin A is really foundational. Not only for mineral metabolism, for creating all of the sex hormones. So you can't make testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA without vitamin A. For all of the endocrine systems, so the making the hormones that allow you to deal with stress, the feel-good hormones, the hormones that regulate your blood sugar and your blood pressure, you need vitamin A for all of these. So vitamin A is like the great regulator. Vitamin A is also the most protective vitamin against cancer and infection. So, the list is very long what vitamin A does. And then we all know that vitamin D, again, has many, many roles in the body. And now we're discovering about vitamin K. So A and D are basically like hormones. They give signals, and vitamin K is the messenger that carries out the instructions from A and D. And vitamin K is especially important for putting calcium and phosphorus in the right place, putting it in the bones and the teeth where it belongs. That's, again, where you get the beautiful bone structure, beautiful facial structure, straight teeth, and keeping it from depositing in the arteries and the soft tissues, like your joints, where it doesn't belong. So vitamin K is the great calcium regulator.
Oh my gosh, this is so interesting. So I can see why these vitamins benefit us. One way I tell it to people, tell me if you like this illustration. If you have a salad and you don't put any fat on it, you can eat it, but you're not going to get the most out of it as if you were to put some olive oil. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Exactly. The olive oil helps you absorb the minerals just because there's fat on the olive oil, but there's no vitamin A in the olive oil.
No.
So you really need the animal fats. And again, people say, I eat a good diet. I eat a whole foods diet. But then I say, do you cook in lard? Do you eat liver every week? Do you eat animal fats? Do you eat lots of egg yolks? Oh, no, I eat the whites, So this is what we mean by the right diet. And it always surprises, unless they're members, it usually surprises people when I say these are the true health foods. These animal fats. And of course, that's what people are avoiding.
Now, do people experience symptoms when they are low in these vitamins?
Yes, indeed. And first and foremost, hormonal problems, hormonal disruption, difficulty dealing with stress, difficulty keeping blood sugar in line. Autoimmune disease is a sure sign of vitamin A deficiency. And the first treatment for autoimmune disease should be cod liver oil and butter and cream and all these good foods. Infertility. is a sure sign of deficiency in these vitamins. Tooth decay, all sorts of problems with conception, pregnancy, birth, growth in children. These all point to deficiencies in the fat-soluble vitamins.
Well, and I feel like a lot of people are struggling with the first two things you mentioned, anxiety and difficulty dealing with stress in our society today.
Absolutely, and depression too. Vitamin D, for example, you need vitamin D for your serotonin receptors to work. Now, there's all sorts of things that people do to raise their serotonin, it's like exercises like laughing and relaxing and all this. But if you can't make the serotonin, or if your receptors aren't working, you're still going to be depressed.
After you have a little laugh.
Yeah, after the laugh's not going to do you any good.
Oh, interesting.
And I think what you find, if you really are replete with these vitamins, if you're eating this way, I think you find that the people who do eat this way they have an aura of stability. They seem relaxed but alert at the same time. And that, of course, that's what we want, to be completely alert, but not under any, in a stressful way.
You can still have a lot to manage. I see this, actually, I have to tell our listeners too. When I come into the Weston Price office, I'm usually kind of hyped up. I've come from my exercise class, and there's a sense of calm and peace. I think that's what you're talking about. People are not tired. They're not lethargic, but they're calm. And there is a sense of groundedness that I notice among them.
I think you notice that among people who are actually eating this way.
Mm-hmm.
There's not the ups and downs of blood sugar, because these fats regulate your blood sugar and keep it stable. The vitamin A is helping your body to make all these wonderful hormones. I know that if I'm under a lot of stress, if I've got deadlines, and I think I'll never get through this, I take extra cod liver oil, and I find it just calms me down immediately. It's better than a tranquilizer, I can tell you.
So, Sally, you're saying that these fat-soluble activators are really critical to our diet, but I hear a lot of people saying that they think protein is the most important thing.
Yeah, big emphasis on protein, and people, I think, are overdosing on protein, eating a lot of lean meat or skim milk or egg whites without the yolks or skinless chicken breasts. That's my favorite thing I like to pick on. Or they're taking protein powders. And traditional cultures never did this. They understood that protein, the animal flesh by itself without the fats, was dangerous. And it is dangerous because when we eat meat or when we eat any protein, we need vitamin A to use that protein. And the quickest way to deplete yourself of vitamin A is to eat a lot of lean protein without the fats, without the organ meats and so forth. And this is what people are doing today, as if, protein is, something that's rare and valuable. But in the Western diet, protein is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's easy to get all the protein that we need. In fact, small amount of meat per day, a couple of eggs per day, that gives you all the protein you need. What we're really lacking in our diet is the right fats and the fat-soluble vitamins.
And there is a lot of conversation now, too, about the value of fats. But we're not just talking about, what kind of fats are we talking about?
Well, again, we sort of are seeing, oh, yes, we need fats. People are saying, yes, we need fats. We need the omega-3 fats, or we need the polyunsaturated fats, or we need monounsaturated fats, but not those terrible saturated fats. So this is one of the most important things we have to teach, is that saturated fats are not bad. It is usually saturated fats that carry these fat-soluble vitamins. These are supposed to be the devil, the demon in the Western diet, but actually traditional cultures all had lots of saturated fat in the diet. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saturated fat. What is implicated in heart disease are the industrial fats and oils, the unsaturated fatty acids, the vegetable oils, the liquid oils, and the hardened oils, the partially hydrogenated oils. And that's what we need to get off of. We need to go back to real fats.
The saturated fats are the ones that are solid at room temperature. Is that right?
Tend to be solid at room temperature, yes. Butter, coconut oil, meat fats, palm oil is also saturated fat.
Again, these saturated fats have an important role in how our body works.
Oh, yes, saturated fats play many roles. And if you say, I'm not going to eat saturated fats, then your body says, well, now I have to make them. So important are saturated fats to all the processes in your body that if you don't eat them, your body will make them. And what does it make them out of? Carbohydrates. And if you want to crave carbohydrates, just stop eating saturated fats. And your body says, well, I'm going to make you give me carbs then, because that's what I need to make saturated fats. The most dangerous diet is a diet that has high protein and no carbs, no saturated fats, but instead is relying on vegetable oils And this is a diet that will make you very sick very quick because you can't make any saturated fats. You're not getting saturated fats. And you need them for so many processes in your body, starting with hormone production, that, it'll make you very sick, a diet like that.
And that sounds like the diet of a lot of Americans who think they're eating healthy, like you were saying, right?
Exactly. No, I'm not going to eat fat, but now I hear that carbs are bad, so I'm not going to eat carbs. And they end up eating lots of lean meat and lots of vegetables and some vegetable oils. And they're completely lacking in what they need, which is the fat, saturated fats, but also they won't be getting the fat-soluble activators. And in fact, such a diet depletes vitamin A very quickly. The South Beach diet is a diet like that. And some versions of the paleo diet are like that.
So you said vitamins A and D are like the hormones. They regulate functions in our body.
They provide the signals. They give the signals.
And K is the messenger.
K is the messenger that carries out and tells the body to make the proteins A and D are asking for. So they're a triumvirate. And this is why we don't recommend taking isolated A, D, and K, because they need to come together in the foods. And in fact, if you just take a lot of vitamin A on its own, it actually can be toxic. It'll create a vitamin D deficiency. And if you take a whole bunch of vitamin D, which of course is what's being recommended, that could create a vitamin A deficiency.
Oh, so they should come together. And do they come together in foods?
And they come together in the very foods that we recommend. And so here's the thing that just shocks people. A healthy diet contains as many of these foods as you can possibly include. So butter, egg yolks, cream, cheese, animal fats, organ meats, fish eggs, oily fish, and shellfish, and then fish livers or fish liver oil, like cod liver oil. So that's like the basic list of foods that you need in your diet, and as many as you want.
It sounds really good.
It's a great diet. And when you put butter on everything, everything tastes good. Learn to eat organ meats. It can be something as delicious as goose liver pate. I mean, that is quintessential health food.
You know, it's interesting. I recently got ground chicken with organ meat ground into it, and I made it up in a stir fry, and it was amazing. And it was so nourishing. It really felt satisfying in a way that stir fry with just regular chicken might not have been.
Exactly. Like I put chicken liver in the meatloaf. And one little slice of meatloaf, you're full, you're satisfied, you don't think about food for many hours. That's one of the things that these organ meats will do. They will really create a feeling of satisfaction when you eat.
And what's funny in the U.S., like you said, is organ meats are sometimes looked down upon. Like it's cast off. It's even hard to get. It's hidden in the grocery store.
Factor, when you talk about eating liver, people kind of turn up their nose. And then I say, well, there's lots of ways of making offal taste good. And that's by putting it in scrapple or pate or sausage or whatever. We were at a local breakfast the other day, and so this is Southern Maryland, all right? And they were serving scrapple there. That was just something that Southern Marylanders eat and have always eaten for breakfast.
Is that the intestines?
It's the scraps, so it's part of the head and the liver and the kidneys, and it's all ground up, and then they fry it. It's mixed with cornmeal, and then they fry it.
And how did it taste?
It was delicious. It was delicious.
Well, when I was in Kenya recently, the people did not turn up their noses at the organ meat. They were talking about, oh, yes, our traditional diet has included that. So it's maybe just foreign to us because we're removed from our traditions.
We're removed from our traditions. We're too wealthy. We can pick and choose. Whereas in a third world country, when you kill an animal, nothing goes to waste. They eat the organ meats first. They eat the fat. They eat the muscle meats. The bones are made into soup. And just nothing is wasted.
Coming up, Sally explains why the USDA describes vegetables as so very nutrient-dense. She also tells the story of Dr. Price's school lunch makeover and the beautiful results it had on children's health and focus.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Many parents struggle to provide the nutrition their family needs for good health. The modern diet is lacking in essential nutrients, and common vitamins are often unreliable and synthetic. That's why Green Pasture Products offers fermented cod liver oil and concentrated butter oil that can help fill your family's nutritional gaps and provide a boost to the health so that they can thrive. Their oils are a great natural source of vitamins A and D and omega fatty acids. Our family takes Green Pasture's fermented cod liver oil regularly to round out our diet. So go to greenpasture.org and place your order today. And support your immune system with wholesome nose-to-tail nutrient-dense foods. Ancestral Supplements Lung, Thymus, and Colostrum will provide your body with the vitamins and minerals it needs to stay healthy and fight off viruses. Why does thymus matter? To a very large extent, the health of the thymus determines the health of the immune system. Ancestral Supplements Beef Lung supports your respiratory system and lung cells. Lung is a source of lung-specific building blocks, peptides, and enzymes. Lung tissue has historically been used by those with respiratory disorders, convalescent stages of pneumonia, colds, flu, and those with pulmonary involvements including accidents, industrial fumes, and dust inhalation. And to complete the immunity powerhouse, add in Ancestral Supplements Colostrum. Colostrum supports optimal gut and immune system function, thymus health, and human growth and cell repair. I take these supplements. I love that they are real food and not synthetic in any way. So visit ancestralsupplements.com to try out Ancestral Supplements Lung, Thymus, and Colostrum. Ancestral Supplements, putting back in what the modern world has left out. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
Well, I think this discussion is going to really challenge some of our listeners to reconsider what they think of as healthy.
Exactly. This is why we raise so many eyebrows, because when we talk about what we consider healthy is completely contrary to the dietary guidelines and the kind of
conventional wisdom,
the conventional thinking, the popular thinking about what constitutes a healthy diet. People think if they eat a salad, that's healthy. But, salads are great. I'm not against salads, but that's not the kind of foods that constitute a healthy diet.
You're so right. When I eat with friends, sometimes they're like shocked. They're like, why are you not eating a salad? Or what's your stance on vegetables? And I'm like, when we're talking about nutrient density, the most bang for your buck, it doesn't come from a leafy vegetable.
No, and they're very expensive too. Now, the USDA calls vegetables nutrient-dense foods, and the way they do it is they do it per calorie. So they say, for example, there's this much calcium per calorie in broccoli. But the thing is, vegetables don't have many calories. So whereas you'd have to eat broccoli all day long to get the amount of iron that you get in a tablespoon of liver. So
it's almost like they're stacking the deck
to make it the old calorie trick. They do it by calorie, but we don't eat calories. We actually eat food, and we eat a certain amount of food every day. Most of us only eat 3 meals a day, and we only eat so many grams of food a day, and that has to be as nutrient dense as possible. If you're going to get your iron from broccoli, well, it's almost impossible to do. You just couldn't eat that much broccoli.
Oh, so interesting. I wonder if some people have bought that information and taken it to heart, and that's why they're turning more into having a plant-based diet. Isn't that really popular now?
That's one of the ways they promote the plant-based diet. They talk about nutrients per calorie. And since vegetables are so low in calories, it makes it look like there's a very high level of nutrients in your broccoli, since we're using that example. But when you eat your serving of broccoli, you haven't gotten much iron. You haven't gotten many calories either. But if you eat a serving of liver, you get enough iron to last you for a week.
Now, Dr. Price was a researcher, so he didn't just see what everyone was eating and then write it down. He actually took some samples of the food back to his lab, didn't he?
He took samples of the foods everywhere he went back to his laboratory and analyzed them for vitamin and mineral content. And he was looking at per weight, not per calorie. And that's how he got these very high numbers of minerals in these diets, no matter what they were eating. Lots of minerals, lots of vitamins A and D, and lots of vitamin K.
Tell the story, Sally, of the school children whose behavior turned around when he started feeding them lunch.
Yes, it was an orphanage he was working with, and he started feeding them, or he took charge of the lunches and started giving them stew. So now the stew is going to be made with the bones and everything. And there was organ meats in the stew. And then they got a whole grain piece of bread with real yellow butter on the bread. And they got cod liver oil. And within just a few weeks, the behavior of these children turned around. They started to thrive. One boy who was failing in school started to succeed really well in school. I mean, it just made such a huge difference. And, you look today at all these behavior problems we're seeing, the almost intractable depression and addictions. And I just say, try our diet first before you go on all these pills. Just try eating a stick of butter a day and see what that does for you. Just try a few egg yolks a day and see how much better you feel. I just feel it's like Dorothy. She was in Kansas all along, but we've got the answers at our fingertips, but nobody realizes it.
So true.
And we get many stories. A lot of these letters are published in our journal just about how just by adding these fats and starting to eat organ meats or using full fat milk or butter or cod liver oil, how that changed the way they felt and gave them a more optimistic attitude. One story I got recently was from someone who'd been a prisoner, and he was very depressed. So every time he thought about all these lost years in prison, he got very depressed. And I said, well, you need to take cod liver oil. So he started taking cod liver oil, and he said, you know what? I just don't feel depressed about it anymore.
Oh my gosh, it's fantastic.
The situation is the same, but I just feel differently about it.
Wow. I have a friend who's a teacher of a second grade classroom, and she said so many of the children there are in therapy, Sally, or on anti-anxiety meds. Like, it's crazy. These are children. These are 7-year-olds.
I know. I think it's 1 in 5 children is on some kind of psychotropic drug in this country. I mean, this is a national tragedy and an epidemic. And what's going to happen when these children grow up? I mean, how are we going to have a functioning society if everybody is depressed and anxious and incapable of sustained effort and sustained concentration?
And these fat-soluble vitamins really help with that.
Oh, absolutely. They would be absolutely number one thing, I would say. And, we have a lot of other interesting recommendations having to do with fermented foods and bone broth and proper preparation of grains. But first and foremost, you need to get on these good fats.
Now, what about a person who says, oh, I can't afford organic? Does it matter if it's organic or not organic? Like, if I can't afford the expensive butter at Whole Foods, like, can I just buy a regular brand?
Yes. We don't want people to think that our diet is an elitist diet. Now, obviously, you should do the best you can. But for most people, even I would say most of our members, their only choice is the supermarket. Mm. And still, the butter is a better choice. It's a much better choice. And in fact, when we did our analyses last year, I was surprised to find how much vitamin A was just in conventional butter. That's because they give it to the animals, of course, and that's not the ideal way of doing it, but it is still a good food.
Richard Morris, who's going to speak at our conference in November, I talked to him. He's the man that lost like over 150 pounds. Yes. He wrote the book, A Life Unburdened. And he said when he made the switch to real food, he did just get grocery store, meat and organ meats, I'm sure, and butter and things like that. And he lost weight and felt better immediately, even though he hadn't gone to the upgrade of organic, let's say.
Exactly. And organic fruits and vegetables are more expensive. I think there's certain ones that you might want to avoid, like strawberries, very heavily sprayed. But still, that's not the number one thing we recommend. The number one thing we recommend is just to get on those good fats.
Well, as we wrap up, Sally, tell me, is there one thing you would recommend to the listener that they could do, one step they could take to improve their health?
Well, I like the way Sarah Pope puts it at the Healthy Home Economist. She says, the first thing is get your fats right. If you just do nothing else but get rid of all the industrial fats and oils in your kitchen and start eating butter and cooking in lard, you'll see a difference. You'll see a big difference.
In how you feel, I guess.
How you feel, how you'll sleep better. I guarantee you'll feel less stressed. You probably will lose weight because you don't feel like eating as much. It's more satisfying.
Yeah, and you'll be grounded, calm. Who doesn't want that? Yeah. I could use a little more of that. But this diet has helped me a lot. So, well, thank you for your time, Sally.
Well, thank you. And again, as I say, this is the most important of our principles and the most widely misunderstood principle of Weston Price.
Well, we'll make sure to get it out there and hope it makes a difference for folks.
That's what we're trying to do at the foundation.
Thanks again.
Our guest today was Sally Fallon Morell. Visit her website to read her blog at nourishingtraditions.com. And I'm Hilda Labrada Gore. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the show notes for this and every podcast episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. Before we wrap up, a letter from Lee from Florida. She said, Dear Weston A. Price Foundation, I am renewing my lapsed membership. I appreciate all the work you do for healthy food, farm, and healing advocacy. I value the weekly podcasts. They are well done and an easy way to share information with others. I especially appreciate all the sane information you are giving for immune health during this current climate of hysteria. I am also thankful for all my local food sources that you have helped me find in years past so that I don't have to go face the empty shelves and fearful people at the grocery chains. Sincerely, Lee. Lee, thank you for this letter. And you guys, go ahead and send us your letters. We may indeed post them in our journals. And to become a member and to get these quarterly journals, it's as simple as clicking on the Y Join button on the Wise Traditions westonaprice.org website. Thanks so much for listening. Stay healthy, my friend. Y hasta pronto.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.